How you going, man?
Morning, John. Not a great night for Blues supporters, eh?
Well,
Very, very disappointing all round, I would have thought.
Ashley Klein made the game all about him. Pretty much a series all about him now. I don't understand why Ashley Klein is considered the best ref in the league by the league when he's the worst ref in the league according to all fans.
Well, there was talk, I think it was Buzz Rothfield who brought it to everyone's attention. Why wasn't Adam G given this game? Because he had a really good game in that grand final last year. And he was overlooked for this game. He wasn't even the reserve referee for this game. So there was a lot of conjecture about that. And yeah, that send-off to Joseph Suaali, it put New South Wales under the pump. Obviously, there's no doubt about it. I don't know, in terms of that call, though, I don't know how he was to make any other call, to be honest. If he hadn't have sent him off, everyone would have said, he didn't have the spine to send him off. So while I didn't think he had a great game overall, Klein, I think in that instance, I'm not sure what other decision he could have made. And I know some commentators were saying, that's not a send-off in State of Origin. I don't know how the referees are supposed to referee to two different rule books. I don't know how they're supposed to referee to an NRL rule book and to a different set of rules in a State of Origin game. I think that makes their job very difficult.
He did referee to a different set of rule book because earlier in the year that almost exact same thing was a sin binning, not a send-off. And it was on with Reece Walsh as well. And it was Taylor May or Tyron May or one of the May brothers got sin binned for hitting Reece Walsh high. He didn't get sent off. So,
well, I thought that one should have been a send off. The one on Reece Walsh earlier in the year that you're talking about.
But the fact is, it wasn't.
Yeah, it wasn't. But to be honest, I thought it should have been.
The other thing about the Suaali one is he didn't actually hit Reece Walsh in the head. His shoulder connected with Reece Walsh's high on his chest. Reece Walsh literally slipped over. If you watch the video footage, like he actually slipped over. His right foot goes forward and slides out underneath him. It's not even a like he stepped or anything like that. He actually slipped over. He didn't step properly and cause him to fall over. So at best, I think it should have been a sin bin. And if that was a send off, then why wasn't the hip drop on Spencer Leniu a sin binning? Why wasn't the high lifting tackle on James Tedesco a sin binning? Was it just because Ashley Klein was trying to recover from the stuff up of leaving the game running for an additional 2 minutes and multiple plays? They got tackled a few more times. Queensland got tackled. I think there was 3 more plays before calling a penalty back to 3 plays ago, moving the ball back down the field and doing a kick for touch from where the initial hit happened. Like it was just, that's not what happens in rugby league. You know, you don't move on and then go 3 plays back and blow a penalty and then move the ball back down the field. It's not how it works. He stopped the game when I can't remember who was playing the ball. The Queensland team was pointing to Ashley Klein, looked down the field, and then basically complained to each other when he had done nothing. Play the ball again, and then as Ben Hunt is about to pass the ball from dummy half, he stops the time, goes back, and it was like 2 or 3 plays early. He moved the game back 2 or 3 plays, and the ball back down the field. So, the entire process was not how rugby league is played. And it just showed that it set the whole standard for the entire game of just terrible refereeing. The game became about the refereeing over the football. And then everybody tried to blame things like, Queensland getting tries in because Zach Lomax or Nico Hines missed a tackle. They're missing their centre for the whole game from 7 minutes in. And there's no recovering from that. The game was over from that point.
Yeah, it was. We're probably just going to have to agree to disagree on that one. I just thought, I wasn't sure what other decision he could have made in that instance. But anyway, Daly Cherry Evans I thought was really good. A line break assist, 2 try assists, 3 tackle breaks, man of the match, kicked for 442 metres, including that crucial 40-20 in the second half.
40-20. That was a response to New South Wales trying to kick a 40-20.
I mean, to be honest, I think if you look closely at the replay, and this is what I mean, where I don't think Klein... I'm with you that Klein didn't have a good game. I mean, I agreed with the send-off, but I thought if you look really closely at that 40-20, you could argue it wasn't actually a 40-20. But anyway, it was called that way.
Well, if the touch judge and the referee miss the fact that it's not a 40-20, the bunker can make a ruling on that.
Yeah, I just thought all of them in conjunction,
why didn't the bunker make a ruling on it and say, hey, that wasn't a 40-20, guys, you're giving the wrong thing?
Yeah,
they're allowed.
I think they're all at fault there. They all could have done more to make a different decision there. But anyway, well done to the Maroons. A really good performance from them. 38-10 win. That Suaali send-off after just 7 minutes. That was the fastest send-off in Origin history. He's facing a 4 or 5 week suspension for that hit on Walsh. So he's signed with Rugby Union from October this year. So it could be one of the shortest Origin careers in history. That was his Origin debut. Yeah, so...
well, he can't... It's 4 or 5 weeks, right? It's 5 or 4 with an early guilty.
Yeah, he's looking at that.
To be honest, if I was the Roosters, I would fight it and risk the 5 because it's he didn't actually hit Reece Walsh in the head. The knockout and everything came from the whiplash and then Reece Walsh's head hitting the ground. You're not a shoulder charge, and it was a bit of a shoulder charge. Like he didn't, since they banned the shoulder charge. There's been the whole thing about you have to wrap your arms. You hit them with a shot to wrap your arms, and he didn't. He had his arm back, so he actually shoulder charged. That's why I thought it was a sin bin, because it was a shoulder charge, and that's what I thought was going to happen. But at the game on the big screen, I said to the people I was with, I didn't even hit him in the head. So that's what I thought it was, like a sin binning, and that's why I think it was a sin binning, because it was a shoulder charge, not a head-high tackle. And yeah, unfortunately, Reece Walsh got knocked unconscious. It was horrible because he was out for like 3 minutes, and that's terrible. And then he passed a concussion test, but he's still being ruled to have a grade 1 concussion. So I don't it's just. I think if you're knocked unconscious, you're not allowed back on, right?
Yeah. So it was because it was a Category 1 HIA that he wasn't able to come back. So if he'd been deemed a Category 2 under the concussion protocols, the players are assessed by a trainer on field and then taken to the sheds for a follow-up HIA. As it stands, a player who displays Category 1 symptoms is immediately removed from the game and takes no further part.
And did the 18th man get to be activated for Queensland?
Yeah, well, Kafusi, he did play a part in the game. Yeah, he played. I think it was 27 minutes. He got.
It's hard to know when you're at the game. Actually, because.
Oh, you went? Did you?
Yeah, I was at the game, so it's hard to know when you're at the game if actually the 18th man is on.
Yeah, well, we're going to be talking about that a bit later. I've got that on the rundown.
It's nonsense.
But so I'm just having a look.
Yeah, I think if you're knocked unconscious, you're not allowed back on no matter what. But yeah, he passed his HIA. So...
Yeah, so Category 1, you're not allowed to come back on. The other players to have been sent off in State of Origin games, Craig Greenhill in 1996, Gordon Tallis in 2000 for mouthing off at Bill Harrigan, Trent Waterhouse in 2009, Jerome Luai and Reece Walsh himself last year, and now Joseph Suaali. So... there's 6 players in total who've been sent off in State of Origin games.
Got to say New South Wales has no chance now because they got to go down to Melbourne where they can win. The stats say that they actually win a lot in Melbourne or something. I can't remember what it was, but then they've got to go to finish the match in the series in Queensland. And we looked it up last week when Piercy was here. And it was like 2 in 11 or something, I think you said was the amount of times they win. New South Wales never wins the series if they have to win the series in Queensland.
No, well, that's really put New South Wales under the pump. Yeah, losing their home game, and then we go to Melbourne and then to Brisbane. So, I mean, all signs are pointing to another Queensland series victory, you'd have to say at this stage.
Well, unless Michael Maguire can make some big changes. Now, we've got Craig Gower coming on next week. Yep, next week. To discuss all things Origin. what changes he thinks that should be made to both New South Wales and Queensland, and where basically we go from here. This is Michael Maguire's first year in charge, and his preparation was all disrupted by injuries, not just 1 week ago with Tedesco being ruled in, but like a bunch of players were missing anyway. It was devastating to be at the game, to be honest. Like, it was just, no one was, like, it was just made the game crap, actually. Like, the game was crap, because it would have been okay if it was 38-10 without the missing player, but from 7 minutes in, New South Wales game was over. And also possibly the series, because they're going to have to go up a massive mountain to even do anything now.
Yeah, well, Brad Fittler sort of called out Michael Maguire for not really having a plan to deal with, obviously, the unexpected scenario of Suaali being sent off so early. And I guess there's an interesting little sort of subtext to that, given that he replaced Fittler as the New South Wales coach.
Yeah, I saw heaps of great comments on this, because if you remember last year when Tom Trbojevic tore his pec, and then Damien Cook was put in the centres, and it was the worst coaching decision ever in Origin history. Everyone on the internet commenting on this story is like, don't worry, Fittler would have had Cookie there ready to go.
Yeah,
Brad Fittler's expecting Damien Cook to run off the stands into the centre position. What plan could he have, to be honest? Like, what plan do you have? Losing no team except for Queensland has someone on their bench to cover the loss of a centre.
And I guess that's the thing. I mean, Fittler can talk about that all he wants, but I mean, it's not like he got injured. I mean, he was sent off.
Yeah,
so you
exactly.
can't. Is
that the plan?
You can't replace a player who's been sent off. It's a send off. You're down to 12 for the rest of the game.
Imagine on the whiteboard in the thing beforehand with his assistant coach going, all right, well, if Suaali gets sent off in the first 7 minutes, what we'll do is, like, what plan can he have? Like, no one expected anybody to get sent off after 7 minutes, and especially, like, losing a centre, being down to 12 men. There's no plan for that. At that point, the game was over. That was it. The only thing they could do was hope to gel some of their combinations and work out what they're going to do for next time. Because there was I have asked everybody, like, tell me a game where after, in such a short period of time, in the first 10 minutes, an outside back is sent off and that team still goes on to win. Find me a game in history where that happened, and I'll show you the outlier. That's not evidence that it can be done. That's that it takes a goddamn miracle for it to be done. So, yeah, like, it's just, the game was over from there, and there's nothing Michael Maguire could have done. Seriously.
Yeah, I mean,
even if he had Selwyn Cobbo on the bench, and he brought a centre off the bench and to replace Suaali's position instead of having to move Angus Crichton there, they still would have lost.
I think you're down a player, so somewhere you're going to be short.
Yeah, they still would have lost.
It's not an injury; it's a send off.
It's 12 versus 13. Yeah. Even if they had an outside back, even if Matt Burton had been able to be activated and gone into centres, they still would have lost.
And if you cover him with one of the forwards, well, then you're down a forward.
Exactly. Angus Crichton eventually moved out there, and straight away the hammer carved up that side. And I was getting all these messages like, "Oh, Zach Lomax is so bad." And like, dude, if you think that you don't know football, is how I have responded to a bunch of people because they were down a player.
Yeah. I mean, you're just not going to. No coach is going to expect that scenario to arise where... I mean, again, this is the earliest send-off in State of Origin history. There have only been 6 send-offs in State of Origin games since the concept began in 1980.
I mean, 2 of them were last year.
So that's 44 years ago.
Yeah.
6 send-offs in 44 years, and none earlier than that in a game. You're not going to expect that scenario to arise in a game. But I need to, and look, I get it, I'm like you. I don't blame Maguire. I mean, how do you plan for that scenario? You can't plan for that. But that having been said, right, they still did lose the game 38-10, okay?
Yeah.
And, we can't pin all of that on the send-off, as bad as it is and as upsetting as that was to the Blues so early. I mean, they still did lose the game of football 38-10. Now, my hesitations with Maguire going into the series were that obviously he's a great NRL coach. He's won a premiership with South in 2014. He's a really good day in, day out, 24/7 NRL coach in that grind of NRL coaching. He's highly intense. He reminds me a lot of a Craig Bellamy. Craig Bellamy, of course, 3 premierships. It would be 5 if those 2 weren't stripped off them. But Craig Bellamy had a crack at Origin coaching as well, and he lost 3. And I know it was a great Queensland team, but he lost 3 straight series between 2008 and 2010.
Yeah, he just picked all of his players.
Yeah, I just don't know. And I'm looking forward to asking Craig Gower about this next week. But is Michael Maguire, is he an Origin coach? Is he the fit of an Origin coach? Do players of that ability at that level, do they need the really intense preparation? I'm sure they had it going into this game, and clearly it didn't work. They were well beaten. I know, granted, they were down a player. But I just had that feeling about Maguire, this intense day in, day out NRL coach. Very good NRL coach. Is he the right fit as a State of Origin coach?
They should put Gowie in.
yeah, why not?
But actually, I reckon somebody like Andrew Johns is better suited. That's the thing with Queensland. They can put in a champion Queenslander that won a whole bunch of series, who's also a good football in mind, but who bleeds Queensland. They have so many because they went through that long period. Whereas New South Wales, we don't. You have to go back to 2005 kind of players to find that kind of Billy Slater-esque or Mal Meninga-esque kind of guy.
Guys like Johns and Fittler.
Yeah, exactly. So, but they tried the Brad Fittler. I think Brad Fittler. The whole thing about Brad Fittler is still he won as many as he lost. So I thought it was we discussed it a lot last year. I thought it was a bit harsh to sack him. Or they didn't even sack him. They tried to put him to part-time and give him a 1-year contract and all this kind of nonsense. So New South Wales is a little bit broken in the coaching department. We're never going to know what happens with Michael Maguire until it happens, and this is what's happened. The 38-10, most of the tries were scored due to New South Wales' weak defence, caused by having players play out of positions. And then it's just confidence, I think. Scored 2 quick tries up that side, bypassing Nico Hines missed the tackle, Zach Lomax missed the cover, Angus Crichton was out of position. What's his name?
Hamiso Tabuai Fido.
Yeah, he just carves up that side, and then there's just confidence is sapped from them. They couldn't recover, and they were never going to recover. So I think the 38-10 scoreline also is. I don't think we can take anything away from the game, to be honest. The game is just a write-off because of the absolutely extenuating circumstances, and it's going to cause New South Wales to lose the series, and it's all going to go back to that pivotal point of Suaali getting sent off, and then Michael Maguire will be under pressure, and everybody's already calling for Nico Hines to be sacked and Mitchell Moses to come in, but what could Nico Hines do? Now I feel like Nico Hines is the new Mitchell Pearce. I'm going to tell Pearcey that. Nico Hines is the new you. Because he's copping heaps of flack about how he needs to be erased. Okay, to be honest, Pearcey messaged me during the game. I was chatting to him because he was at the game as well. And he said they're going to have to bring back Mitchell Moses. And I said to him, what will that achieve? Because if Mitchell Moses was there and they had a send-off 7 minutes in, Mitchell Moses wasn't going to stop Joseph Suaali from getting sent off. Mitchell Moses wasn't going to, the forwards weren't able to roll forward and set it up time for Nico Hines. At the times when Nico Hines and Jerome Luai, actually, I thought he had a pretty good game for the circumstances. At the times where they were given space, things tended to happen. Like the Zach Lomax try was, the one time in the 80 minutes that Nico Hines actually had space, time.
And he did set up that Lomax try with that.
Yeah, and it was because he had time. It was off the back of a quick play the ball. Forwards rolled forward for they had a good set and everything. Doesn't matter who you put in there. If forwards aren't going forwards, they aren't getting quick play the balls. Your halves aren't going to be able to do anything. So Nico Hines is copping all this flack, and what can you do? Next time you change Mitchell Moses and 7 minutes in, whoever the replacement centre is, probably going to be Matt Burton, I would say, gets sent off after 7 minutes. Do you then go, we've got to get rid of Mitch Moses and put in, I don't know who the next number 7
Yeah, well, you'd like to think that they're not going to have another player sent off after 7 minutes in game 2.
But you get what I mean. I
know what you mean.
What are you going to do? What's Nico Hines going to do? You cannot win a game of rugby league if you are down one man on the field. Being down one man on the bench because of injury is different to being down one man on the field and doing 12 against 13. There's not a single... I thought there wasn't a single player on the New South Wales team that had a bad game except for Suaali. He had a shocker. He had the worst game in the history of rugby league.
It is just the way it is, though, isn't it? We've got to be honest about it. You lose a game, you make changes. That's just how
they're going to have to.
And
that's what I mean. It just seems so unfair to all of those guys. I thought, who's the guy? I was reading power rankings today, and it's Martin, yeah? Liam Martin. Yeah, Liam Martin came off the bench, had good defence and stuff like that, only played a few minutes. There was a lot of criticism for him not having a good game. And what was he going to do? Coming off the bench. I don't understand what people expect the players to do when they're down a man. Spencer Lenny, who had a cracker of a game, he was probably New South Wales' best player. There's obviously people saying Edwards will come in next game for Tedesco if Edwards is fit.
Yeah, but it's going to happen.
Yeah, it is.
Let's be honest.
But what was James Tedesco going to do? What does anyone expect from these players?
It's just the way it is. You win, you keep the same team if you can, as long as there's no injuries. You lose, you make changes.
How long is Reece Walsh going to be out for? It's compulsory 11 days or whatever.
Yeah. Well, it'll be that, and it'll be that 11 days. So he'll be right for the next game.
And we can move on to talking about Selwyn Cobbo. I love this. The Billy Slater's decision to pick Selwyn Cobbo on the bench is vindicated. Thanks, Joseph Suaali.
Yeah, well, you got to hand it to Slater. He did prepare for that scenario, and
we discussed it last week with Piercy. It's 38 outside back injuries in the first half this year so far, whatever the number was. And you know what? As I said before, if Michael Maguire had Selwyn Cobbo on the bench, the game would have been really different because he could have brought that centre, because Selwyn Cobbo is a centre, on to cover the fact that Suaali is out instead of having to move a forward who's... when has Angus Crichton ever played centre? I'm sure he has a couple of times or whatever, but he's definitely had to do it before by covering. He's not an origin centre, so if they had a centre on the bench, I think it's starting to look like this year that every team should start carrying an outside back on the bench.
Yeah, well, as injuries become more frequent, they're certainly going to have to look at that. But yeah, I mean, he threw Selwyn Cobbo into the action and moved Tabio Afido to fullback.
Yeah, as you would.
And yeah, it worked out well for the Maroons. There's no doubt about it. Tell you what, though, you talk about Maguire just before. Just going back to him for a second, I don't. There's talk linking him to this Parramatta job. Now, I don't. I just got to say, I don't think that he should. If he were. James Hooper on NRL 360 a little while back was saying, "Oh no, he's made a commitment. I think it's a 2-year deal. He's got to coach the Blues, so he's got to see out the 2-year deal." But I mean, if he loses both series, they're not going to keep him. So if my attitude towards that is, well, he's just got to take the best. If it means leaving after one series, well, if that's the best job for him, can you really blame him? He's far more of an NRL coach than he is of an Origin coach.
He should go there, and every Origin coach should go there. Origin coach, if you're at Origin and you're in, it doesn't even matter if you're winning or losing, actually. Every Origin coach, you're one series away from getting sacked.
Yeah, they'll sack you if you don't get results. It's a two-way street.
If you go to a club, you've got 2 to 3 years guaranteed, even if you go badly. 2 to 3 years, depending on the team.
Yeah,
right?
On a much higher salary.
Yeah. You go to Melbourne.
Employment.
You go to Melbourne, you miss your finals, you're going to get sacked, right? Whoever takes over Craig Bellamy. But you go to someone like Parramatta, who's they're not even struggling, but they are struggling for the past 2 years. You go there, you got 2 to 3 years of leeway. Whereas with Michael Maguire could get sacked after this series.
Yeah.
There's no job security in his Origin.
Yeah, who cares? It's a 2-year contract. What's a contract worth these days?
So, of course, he should go to Parramatta if they're offering the job.
Yeah, and the other thing is, if let's say he saw out the 2 series that he's been signed for, and he loses both series, well, his stocks will go right down. His stocks were sky high after he coached New Zealand to that Pacific Championship win over Australia, that 30-0 win in the final last year. His stocks were sky high. If he coaches these 2 series, gets beaten in both, his stocks will go back down. So wouldn't he want to take an NRL gig that's available right now?
If I was him, I would.
Of course you would. Of course you would. And you can't blame him because, as I said, it's completely results-driven. If they lose the 2 series, they get rid of him straight away without hesitation.
Or they move him down to part-time or whatever the crap they did to Brad Fittler to basically manage him out. That you mentioned that Pacific Championship Cup. I can't remember. It was the championship for Australia,
Pacific Championship.
Yeah, it was the cup for the other guys.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that gives me hope for State of Origin, New South Wales. Because, New Zealand got pumped 1 week and then the next week went and pumped Australia. So that gives me hope that maybe Michael Maguire can actually turn to New South Wales around. That's
the thing. And, I know I'm questioning Maguire as an Origin coach, but, let's just temper that with, all right, it is only one game. The series is not over yet. All right, it's looking grim because they lost their game at home and then they got to go to Melbourne and then to Brisbane. But the series is not over yet. There's still 2 games to go. Let's see how things play out first. But yeah, I just saw that and I just saw James Hooper talking about that and I thought, like saying, he should see out his 2 years. No, give me a break.
He should go.
They'll part ways with him straight away if he doesn't get results.
If it's a whitewash, he'll get sacked as well.
Yeah,
that's
he
the other
should
thing.
Like anyone else, he should take the best job that's available to him at that given time.
Origin,
and the best job, well, for him, it may. If I'm imagining he's one of the front runners for that Parramatta job, if that's offered to him, if I was him, I'm taking it.
Even. Because, like Queensland, if they would have sacked Michael Maguire, Queenslanders would say, we'd never do that. But, they sacked Kevin Walters, right? Remember Kevin Walters was the new Queensland coach?
It's easy.
Do people remember that?
It's easy to be loyal when you're winning a lot.
Yeah, like in Origin, it's 3 games a year and you have really, like, you're on a yearly... Even if it doesn't matter how long your contract is, they can give you a 40-year contract for Origin as a coach, but you're doing it yearly. If Queensland whitewash... and he can win all 3 matches, Maguire's career, Origin career, could be over.
Yeah.
So, of course, he should take a more secure... Like I said, but in a clubland, especially in a struggling club, you've got 2, maybe 3 years guaranteed, basically.
And if that were to happen, that scenario you just mentioned, if New South Wales were to lose in a whitewash and then they sack Michael Maguire after 1 series with another year left on his contract, well, what's James Hooper going to be saying then? How can he... obviously he's not going to be able to see out his contract because he's sacked. It's just a ridiculous notion in such a cutthroat business. If you're a top-level rugby league coach, you take the best available job that's on offer. And if Michael Maguire, as I said, if he's offered that Parramatta job, he would be mad not to take it.
Yeah, I think it's between him. Right now it's between him and Jason Riles. Jason Riles is... stayed at Melbourne this year because he was meant to be taking over for Melbourne next year, but Craig Bellamy has extended by a year. So Jason Riles is now like, why the hell did I stay at Melbourne?
Yeah, I mean, I know he is one of your old Dragons favourites, so I've got to be careful what I say about Riles, but...
No, he left. Screw him.
Like, given a choice between him and Maguire, you got to go with the coach who's got the runs on the board, don't you? Maguire's won an NRL 100%. Premiership. He won a premiership in the Super League with Wigan. He, as I said before, he won that Pacific Championship, beat Australia 30-0 in a final. This guy can coach.
Yeah, 100%.
If given the choice between him and if it is Riles, the other front runner, I'm taking Maguire every day.
But they always talk up a bunch of these guys. Like, Cameron Serrato was talked up so heavily and pursued by everyone. And I remember, I think Justin Holbrook was another one that was like really... Basically, everyone who's gone to the Titans has been one of those new coaches on the scene that's supposed to be the best ever. Jason Riles is that one now. So... There's no other teams right now that are looking like they're going to be losing their coach. So Riles, he might have to wait at Melbourne for another year.
Yeah, I just with that Maguire coaching in Origin, I just think like players at that level, I don't know whether they really need the intense build-up. I mean, they know that obviously the match itself is intense enough. Do these players really need the intense build-up as well? It's just with Craig Bellamy not having success as an Origin coach, similar coach to Maguire. Yeah, I just wasn't sure about the fit of having Maguire as your Origin coach.
Yeah, I remember his issue was he picked a whole bunch of his players that probably shouldn't have even been picked, and he hated coaching against his players. Like, because he had to coach against all
and you can't have a coach with that mentality in a state of Origin game. So this Matt Burton getting no game time.
Now, see, here's the thing about it. Did it really matter after the Bulldogs absolutely smashing Newcastle the other day?
That's the thing. Like, I get your point. I get your point.
No, that's not a real point, man.
My attitude is, well, that doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's not a real point.
And I know this might seem like I'm a disgruntled Bulldogs fan not having one of my star players for that game, but... To be honest, it's not. It's the principle of this. Now, I just don't understand how, like, Matt Burton's had to sit out 2 games that he could have played. Sat out the Bulldogs win over the Knights because the 18th player now under these new HIA concussion protocols, the 18th player can be injected into the game. He's a star player. Not that him being a star player really matters. That's besides the point. But I just thought, like, that's just ridiculous that he would be sidelined for 2 games that he could have played.
Yeah, and sat around doing nothing. If he had like some niggling injuries, it'd be good. I'm sure the Bulldogs would be happy to give him a rest, given the fact. Look, that's not a real point. The fact they won
that's
isn't
the thing.
point.
That they played against a Newcastle side who just weren't up for the fight. Imagine if they had played against a much better side, and they would have really needed Matt Burton to win the game.
Yeah, so that's why it's not a real point because it's just coincidental that they won. That's not a what's it called, irony or whatever. That's just coincidence. And if they had lost. Like, you think about it, like, what if they had lost a really close one as well, and Matt Burton would have been the difference, and then the Bulldogs missed the 8 because of it? Things like that. Yeah. And then, you'll have the thing where people go, yeah, but they could have won other games. But that's a very extenuating circumstance in which Matt Burton has to sit in Origin camp for no reason other than to sit in Origin camp. And then get his jersey on and sit on a bench for no reason other than to sit on a bench.
So he sat out the Bulldogs game for no reason. He sat out the Origin game for no good reason.
And so, like, it was stupid from the beginning. It was absolutely stupid from the beginning. And it's the fact that he didn't play, which he was like Michael Maguire said, he's never going to play. Probably not going to play. It's such a rare thing. I know it happened for the Queenslanders, right? It happened for the Queenslanders. Yeah, but it's such a rare thing.
But even for the Queenslanders, right? Kaufusi was Queensland's 18th player, right? He only played for 27 minutes. So if Kaufusi had played on the weekend, well, 27 minutes is not going to kill him, right?
And I'm sure they're when you talk about it like that, right? Because they say like, you can't play that many games in a short period of time. But a bunch of those players, like the Dragons, are playing tomorrow. Ben Hunt's probably going to back up. He played 80 minutes. No, he didn't play 80 minutes. I can't remember how many minutes he played. Harry Grant came on and stuff, but that was my biggest fear, and look what came of it. Jaden Sewer's going to back up. Zach Lomax is going to back up. Zach Lomax played 80 minutes. So they're playing on Friday. What difference is it that the Bulldogs game was last Thursday, right?
Friday night.
Friday night, yeah, okay. Matt Burton could have played on Friday, and then Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, 5 days later, sat on the bench and done nothing, or possibly played 27 minutes. How is that better than Ben Hunt? Like, just this is the worst one. There's no Tigers in either team, right? Ben Hunt, Jaden Sewer, and Zach Lomax playing on Wednesday and then Thursday, Friday playing. How is Matt Burton sitting out better than that? How is that for the safety of the players? If you're really going to go down that route of Matt Burton can't play because he's 18th man and we got to protect him and stuff like that, okay, then you have to ban people from backing up for the whole round.
Yeah.
Because that's hypocrisy.
Yeah, and clubs can manage their way through that scenario
Exactly.
as well. They can go, oh, well, Matt Burton played for us on Friday, played a bit of the Origin on Wednesday, so if we can, we might just manage him through this game on Monday against the Eels.
You think about it like, it might be that, look, Ben Hunt's been named in the extended lineup for the Dragons or whatever, but, so's Jaden Sewer and so's Zach Lomax, because they have to be, because of risk of injury. What will happen is if Ben Hunt can back up and he backs up, and the Dragons are up by 20 points with 20 minutes to go, they'll hook Ben Hunt. They'll move around and be like, we're sweet. We'll. That's management, and that's up to the club to do. It's not up to the NRL to say Matt Burton can't play because he's the 18th man and he's got to sit on a bench in 5 days. He has to sit on a bench in 5 days. It didn't matter what day they played, but even the fact that they played on Friday and it was 5 days till he had to sit on the bench in Origin, it just makes no sense.
Yeah, and then another 5 days to his next game on Monday against the Eels. So that rule, just to clear that up, so the 18th player can be activated if 2 teammates are ruled out of a game by failed head injury assessments.
Who was the second one for Queensland?
Look, to be honest, I can't remember off the top of my head. But there must have been someone, otherwise Kafusi wouldn't have been activated. I mean, he only played 27 minutes, so obviously it happened much later in the game, with Reece Walsh, being out cold in the 7th minute.
Yeah. So look at that. That's such a... what is it called? 2 players have to be injured.
Yeah.
2.
And before this rule came in, right? Before the rule that the 18th man can take part in the game if you have those 2 HIAs. The 18th man in Origin was allowed to play the weekend before.
Yeah.
And that 18th man played the weekend before and went to the Origin game thinking that there was a chance that he could play. If someone went down in the warm-up or something untoward happened, he went there with the knowledge knowing that, all right, I may have to play after only having played in the NRL on the weekend. So what's the difference then? What, just because it's maybe more likely that he gets some game time? I mean, it was always a chance that the 18th man would have to play if someone went down in the warm-up.
I got to ask.
Under the previous rules.
Like, if Dylan Edwards had been ruled out on Monday, would the New South Wales team called in James Tedesco after he had played for the Roosters on Sunday? Because it was just all like luck of the draw kind of thing. Dylan Edwards was ruled out on Saturday.
And Tedesco was due to play on Sunday and he could be pulled out.
Screwed over the Roosters, so they ended up losing, causing a major reshuffle. When they already had players out. But if it had been Sunday, would they have called James Tedesco? They would have been allowed to, and would they have? Because that would have just made an even bigger mockery of Matt Burton not being allowed to play.
You know what? You asked the question. I think they would have. He would have still played.
Yeah,
because
I think so.
and he would have been expected to play 80 minutes as well. I think he would have played because there were 2 clear, obvious candidates for the fullback spot: Edwards and Tedesco. And as you say, had Tedesco have played that game against the Cowboys on Sunday, I think they would have still gone with him, even having played the 80 minutes.
I think so too. I really think that.
Because if they hadn't have picked him, well, then there would have been a huge criticism saying, "Oh, well, you should have picked him even though he did play."
Yeah, and like who else would there be anyway? There wasn't any other fullbacks. No. no other fullbacks in contention because
I don't
they're all
know.
currently injured. Oh, they could have called him
I don't know.
Latrelli.
Gutherson, I don't know.
But he played.
Well, he played.
He's only just come back from injury. That's the other funny thing that, like, it's not on our rundown or anything, but that Parramatta game is really funny because that was, I'm not a Parramatta fan, but that was the first time that Mitch Moses, Clint Gutherson and Bryce Cartwright had all been on the field together at the same time since round 3. And they won.
Yeah.
And Brett Arthur was sacked.
Yeah.
If they go on a tear now, it's not going to be because Trent Barrett did anything, actually. It's actually going to be because the Parramatta Eels got their 3 best players all back on the field and fit at the same time. And they beat the Sharks.
Yeah. Sorry, you mentioned before who was their other HIA. I'm just looking back at the play-by-play. I think Lindsay Collins went off for a free interchange. So I suspect he must have been their other HIA.
Even though it was
that would have activated Kafusi.
It was him too, He only played like 44 minutes or something. So it was stupid that Matt Burton had to sit down.
Yeah.
Of course, the Bulldogs fans are the most affected by it, but I've not seen or heard anybody, doesn't matter the fan, who doesn't think it was a travesty.
Yeah, it's just there's no sense in that at all. Having a player having to sit out 2 games of football, I think it's just completely ridiculous. And I know, again, the Bulldogs did win on Friday, but that's not the point. That's besides
neither
the
here
point.
nor there. I say that to be funny.
Besides the
It's neither here nor there. It's
because I don't want that to happen to another player, and I don't care which team it is.
It's irrelevant whether they won or lose.
Yeah, I don't want to see that scenario occur again, where the 18th player has to sit out the club game and then plays no part in the Origin game. The scenario has to be that unless you're in the 17, therefore pretty much guaranteed of taking part in the game, it's very rare that any one of the 17 wouldn't take any part in the game. If you're not in that 17, you should be able to play for your club the week before.
So the Bulldogs have got to buy.
They're going to buy after the Eels game on Monday.
Okay, so
that's your opportunity to really freshen him up.
But that's when they're going to name the Origin teams as well for that week. So
I think you got Parramatta this week, then they got the bye the following week, and then just after that bye on that bye weekend, the teams go into camp for the next game.
And then so Matt Burton's going to have to sit out the Roosters game.
Yeah.
Because he's going to be
and he might be 18th man again. Yeah, and he might not play any part in the next game either.
That's the Roosters game. He's going to have to sit that out for. The Roosters game is on the Saturday. He's going to have to sit it out. Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, 4 days. Like, it's ridiculous. Because he'll surely be the 18th man again, unless they replace Suaali with him or something, and then it's fair that he shouldn't play club football. Or whatever.
If he's in the 17, that's different, but not in the 17. But you should be playing the weekend before.
You know what? You can put it in a conjecture thing where if New South Wales had have won, they would change nothing. Matt Burton would definitely be the 18th man, so he would definitely miss that Roosters game pointlessly.
Yeah, so there's this. The scenario could present itself that what happened to Matt Burton could happen to the same player for the whole 3 games.
Yeah.
And so they could potentially miss 6 games of football. Yeah. That they shouldn't. 3 games of NRL, 3 games of State of Origin. That they could be sitting down for 6 games. If that were to happen to the same player for all 3 games.
And it's highly likely to happen, because Matt Burton is probably stuck in that 18th man, at least for this year, unless something, because especially with players coming back, like Mitch Moses is back, so they don't need Matt Burton to cover halves anymore. Mitch Moses is going to be the next choice half. It could be that he covers centre, but it's stupid. It's a really stupid rule. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I think we're in agreement on that one, for sure.
Nobody disagrees. No. That's the thing. No matter what the club... Because every single person can see, man, what if that was one of my players?
And you mentioned it on our podcast with Mitchell Pearce as well. You said, oh no, Burton's not playing because... You were onto that, but Burton's not playing because he's the 18th man and he could come in. And right then and there I thought, well, this is a ridiculous scenario. If he doesn't play any part in the Origin game as well, this is just a circus.
Every single person can see, because like say for me, what if Ben Hunt was Queensland's 18th man? What if it doesn't matter what team? What if for Parramatta Eels? What if it was Clint Gutherson? Like it doesn't matter what team you are. Every single person can see, man, one of our star players could really be like pointlessly rested for no apparent reason and really screw over our team. Yes, the Bulldogs won. It's not a real thing. The kind of people who use the Bulldogs won as an argument are the people who are like at the NRL. You know, there's no fan. Every fan I've seen, like I did, I just say it tongue in cheek. Yeah. The Bulldogs won, so what does it matter?
They were playing against Newcastle. What if they had been playing against the Sharks or the Panthers or the Storm?
It's the dumbest thing. They got to play the Roosters next. I mean, the Roosters are going to be missing some players or whatever, possibly
after the Eels.
Yeah, I mean, they've got to play the Roosters next without Matt Burton being 18th man. And Roosters are going to be missing. But in all likelihood, James Tedesco will be in for the Roosters. Joseph Suaali won't, but what other Roosters were in the teams? There was Lindsay Collins, Spencer Lanier. They're going to be missing some players, but they're also going to have some players there. They're not going to be missing Luke Keary. They're not going to be missing Sam Walker. Joey Manu,
Angus Crichton's another one.
Oh yeah, so he'd be out. But they're probably going to have James Tedesco back. The Roosters are going to be in a good position. And right now, the Bulldogs are meant to. Any improvement, 9th, 10th, is a good improvement for the Bulldogs this year, right?
Yeah.
But they're actually at the cusp of being in form and making the 8, and this is going to have a big adverse effect on them.
And, so the Bulldogs are 6 wins, 6 losses, right? Only 2 of their losses this year have come by more than 6 points.
Yeah.
So if things had gone their way more, that we could be in a situation where they had, let's say if you give them 2 of those 4 games they lost by 6 points, they could be 8 wins, 4 losses. Now, and
they only won away once. That's their thing.
I mean, I know that's a hypothetical, but you know what I mean. I mean, if they could be right in the hunt. The way they're playing at the moment, the way their defence is going, and their attack's the best it's been in years.
Yeah, but I mean, you think about it. You got like Dragons, Knights, Cowboys, Bulldogs, and Roosters all on 14 right now. Okay. So that's Roosters are sitting at 8th. So 8th to 12th are all on 14. If it was the end of the year, these are the 5 teams that are battling it out for 8th spot. And Matt Burton having to miss a whole bunch of games because he's the 18th man and then not getting to play Origin could be the reason that the Bulldogs miss out on the 8.
Yes.
Because they could drop games, not by much, but it could be it's the kind of thing where that star player who's in great form could have been the linchpin that, when they've only lost by 6 that prevented that, or only lost by 2 that prevented that, or got them that extra try.
And I don't want to get too carried away because I am a supporter, so I'd prefer to ask you the question instead. Given the way the Bulldogs are performing in defence at the moment, given the way that their attack is flourishing, if you were to run into them in the early part of the final series, if they were to get there, I'm tipping they're not a team you would want to run into in the form that they're in. No. And with the potential that they've now got this year, things have just turned on their head for the Bulldogs. Yeah. They're a different team. And I think I would have thought, as an opposition supporter, hypothetically, if the Dragons were to play the Bulldogs in the first week of the semis, they're not a team that you would want to run into.
No, definitely not. But
So they are. What I'm trying to say is they are a team who, if they were to scrape in the 8, they could do some damage. Yeah. Now, unlike some other teams like the Raiders, the Raiders who scrape into the 8 and do nothing once they get there.
And the thing is, right, they could miss the 8 and not get the potential to, not get the ability to possibly do any damage because Matt Burton is sitting out.
And not get that opportunity, right?
I mean, I know it's all hypothetical and it's all what ifs and we don't like what ifs, but it just shows how that rule is stupid. It doesn't make any sense. It adversely affects the game. It adversely affects specific teams. Adversely affects fans. And it doesn't make any sense.
And again, you could have, as I said before, the same player missing out on 6 games of football, 3 State of Origin games and 3 NRL games for no good reason.
Just cause.
Yes.
Whereas, Ben Hunt will back up on Friday, hopefully, against the Tigers. They might actually rest him because it's the Tigers.
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to be confident of winning that one, wouldn't you?
Not really. Like, it's up and down, Tigers are on an 8-game losing streak. Piercy said, the reason he tipped, I think it was, I can't remember who it was against the Sharks, because the Sharks can't stay on top forever. The Tigers and anybody who's at the bottom, it's the same. You can't go on a super long losing streak. Someone's got to break. So everyone who plays the Tigers for the next few weeks should be quietly worried because someone's got to break that streak and you don't want it to be you. So yeah, that's why I'm confident they should win. They're paying $1.12 or something like that, but I'm still worried about it. Imagine losing. It's on Friday.
So this, I just put there, I know you mentioned, they were obviously put under the 8 ball by that early send-off. But inevitably what happens in these scenarios, as we touched on before, is the team gets beaten, they're going to make changes. It's going to happen. Yeah. That's just the way it is. Now, we're looking at James Tedesco. Now, Dylan Edwards, apparently, he's been named in the extended squad for the Panthers for Sunday's game. And so he could be a late inclusion. And even if he's not, if you can believe that, only a few days after not being fit for the Origin. Now, even if he doesn't play this week, you'd think, well, he will play the next week, and then that would put him in. That would give him a game before the next stage.
He'll definitely go. Tedesco's not the first choice, right?
And they've been beaten, they've lost, so they're going to go back to Edwards if he's fit.
100%. Then it actually kind of is the same thing for Hines, because was Hines the first choice? We don't really know about Hines being the first choice because everyone else was injured. Nathan Cleary was the first choice. Right? Yeah. And then it was kind of between Moses and Hines. If Moses
didn't get back quickly enough.
But Moses is back now, had a blinder, could continue to have a blinder, could carve up the Bulldogs on Monday. Yeah. And so you'd have to say Moses would be the Hines replacement.
Yeah.
But it could also be that Moses is a Luai replacement. I think Piercy raised a really interesting point how much Luai's gone under the radar. Because I was going and looking at every expert's team leading up to Origin before the game was named, and no one named Luai. Seriously. Nobody, not just us and Gowie and everything, everybody out on the internet, no one was naming him.
He'd have to be the most maligned player to win 3 straight premierships in the halves that there's ever been.
So it could very well be that Luai is the guy that gets dropped over Hines.
It's possible.
Hines is obviously under the most pressure because he's a halfback, but he's Mitchell Pearce 2.0. Now we've got a situation where every time Hines plays, New South Wales loses a series, and he's going to become the guy that everyone hopes one day wins one. But let's not make it 9 years. So it could be. I think Moses will come into the squad. Obviously, they need a new centre. It
may be Matt Burton.
Yeah, it could be Matt Burton.
And look, I hope it is because I don't want him to have to go through what he's just gone through of sitting 2 games out.
There's it could be that they, somebody shout out to Sam from eBits for all your IT services requirements. He pointed out that Jacob Carraz is actually one of the. Currently, he was saying that they should drop Zach Lomax and put Jacob Carraz in, which is nonsense.
Well,
but they could move Lomax. They could move Lomax to centre and bring in someone like Carraz as well.
Yeah, Carraz, he could be an option there to replace Suaali. There's no doubt about it. Yeah, and the advantage that Carraz has over Burton is he plays in the outside backs every week, and Burton doesn't. Burton's done well in the centres in Origin in the past and in big games. I think he scored a try in that 2021 Grand Final for Penrith playing in the centres.
And he was centre of the year, I think, for one of the years.
So Burton's got good form in big games at centre, but Carraz has that upside of having played in the outside backs all season.
Yeah, there's going to be changes, and it'll definitely be Tedesco if Edwards is fit. The halves will be shaken up, and they have to move some of the backs around. I don't think any of the forwards need to be replaced, but I do think.
Just going to look at some of their run meters while you're talking. They need to carry a more of a utility player on the bench. It might be a good idea to put Burton in at number 14. Because I really think they need a more utility-based player that can cover backs and stuff like that on the bench. It's true, but as we said before, Brad Fittler, there's not a whole lot you can do if a player's sent off.
That's
unfortunately, 13's 13 and 12 is 12,
yeah,
unfortunately.
exactly. It's not to cover a send-off. Like, there's no way to cover a send-off. Come on, man.
I'm just looking at some of these. I'll just have a quick look at the meters for these Blues forwards. All-run meters, So Payne Haas.
That's the lowest was Jake Trbojevic, but he only played 29 minutes.
Yeah, Payne Haas 115, Angus Crichton 168, Isaiah Yeo 125, Spencer Lenny 113,
Yeah, man.
Ola Kawatu 83, McInnes 94, Liam Martin 71. They're pretty solid in the metres.
Yeah, Hudson Young only played 14 minutes and ran for 13. He had some good defence. And then you go and look at the defence, defensive. So one of the things was Reece Robson didn't get to do anything, but he made 50 tackles. Cam McInnes 41, Liam Martin 35, Payne Haas 42. Like they had a huge amount of they had to go through a huge amount of defense, and that has a lot to do with like being a player down. Nico Hines had to make 29 tackles. Poor guy, he also missed 4. But so I don't think any of the forwards strangely Jake Trbojevic played very few minutes. It was only 29 for the captain, and I don't think Hudson Young had long enough to get into the game. Like, he only ran for 13 meters. Oh, he played 23 minutes. Only ran for 13 meters. But yeah, if they're gonna put more of a utility player on the bench, which I really think they should, I think Hudson Young would be the one that loses his spot.
Yeah, they did have more ball too, the Blues, 53% to 47%.
Bit weird, eh?
Yeah.
They made a billion tackles, but had the ball more.
Yeah.
Like, it's sad. What was the tackle? That was the thing. So yeah, the Blues made 360 tackles to the Maroons 399. But again, both of them missed a lot of tackles. 41, 45. I think the real killer though for all of it was the intercepts. They threw 2. New South Wales threw 2. Queensland's defence was not good. But the fact that even in attack, being a player down has a lot of an effect. You can't get your overlaps and stuff like that. So Queensland's defence, they had 20 ineffective tackles. They had 41 missed tackles. They had to make a hell of a lot of tackles. Didn't have the ball as much. New South Wales couldn't score. And that's why Nico Hines has come under a lot of pressure. But you can still go back to the fact that they were a man down.
Yeah. Changes are going to be made, though. It's just
Joseph Suaali would have been one of the big attacking weapons, but he wasn't there. So, poor Angus Crichton.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this Origin scheduling, it's been a bit of a talking point. Do they need to condense it?
It used to be every 2 weeks, and they blew it out to every 3.
I got to be honest here. Look, Origin, it's not what it was in the 80s or 90s. Now, I just think my thoughts are I'd like to see it play the first half of the NRL season, shut the competition down, play 3 Origins in 3 weeks, back to back, Sunday night. Then you start the season again.
Yeah.
I just don't agree with players having to sit out of their club games to play Origin games. I just don't think it's fair on the clubs.
No,
I don't know how that's justifiable.
That's why they pushed it out to 3 weeks, and they made the camps longer, and it's just like more and more and more and more. And yeah, we were going to do a daily Origin update for our social media, but no news came out. There was no build-up. No. The period is so long that there's still no build-up. So it is. I don't like it. I've talked about it many times. I think they should do exactly what you're saying, right? They play the first. How many rounds are there?
There's 27. So say you play the first 13 rounds.
There's only 27 because of the Origin, though. They could just make it 26 without the Origin.
I think it's 27. I think because teams have 3 buys now
Yeah,
because of that 17 team.
No, but it's because of the Origin. Because a lot of teams, they have the shortened weeks during the Origin.
All right, well, let's say if it was 26 rounds, right?
Yeah.
You just play 13 rounds. You cut the competition there. You play your 3 straight Origins. Get that done. Then you play the last 13 rounds and then the final.
And during that period, that 3 weeks, they could have things like Tonga versus Samoa, New Zealand, North Island
Women's Origin.
Women's Origin, which is on tonight. Forgot about that. Should have chucked it on there. New South Wales obviously won the first game. They were the underdogs. Now Queensland are the underdogs. Here's a stat for you. Tamika Upton, who's the best player in the world, plays for the Knights now. Won Dally M women's thing last year for the Knights. Has never lost a game at McDonald Jones Stadium.
Very impressive.
When she was at the Broncos and when she was at Newcastle, never lost a game.
Very
and that's
impressive.
where it is.
Very
so
impressive.
Queensland looks to tie the series with that Tamika Upton never being able to lose there. So
yeah, so you could have that around
around
State of Origin. You could have, you mentioned Test football before. You get New Zealand, you get PNG, Tonga, Samoa, Fiji, Lebanon. Get them involved. Get them playing tests around these Origin
They could
games.
make 8 games, and then the crown jewel is the Origin on the, like you said, Sunday night. They don't have to play 8, but they could. There's 8 teams there.
I'm at a point where I would rather, like people say, oh yeah, but you need club footy to watch on the weekend. No. I'm at a point now where I would rather have the competition be suspended for 3 weeks to get Origin done and dusted than have a scenario that we've got now where players are being pulled out of Origin. We talked about the Matt Burton scenario before. If you bring this system in, well, that's no longer an issue.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
No longer an issue. If you bring that new system in, I just don't think that, because Origin isn't what it used to be in the 80s and 90s, I just don't think it's worth ruining the NRL for 10 weeks to facilitate it anymore. And Gordon Tallis said, but people who haven't played Origin wouldn't understand. You can't get back up for it 7 days later and play another one. I mean, very few members of the population have ever played State of Origin football. I don't think you can just make decisions based on what former players want or think. I mean, 2 of our ambassadors, Craig Gower and Mitchell Pearce, they have played State of Origin before, but very few people have. So I don't know whether you can be making these decisions just to appease former Origin players.
It's it would be much better, and they could bring back City Country. I would love that too. They could do Brisbane versus or North Queensland versus South Queensland, things like that. If you want to fill in, people are worried about there not being
just involving the players who aren't in the Origin.
And so they could if you're worried about you can't have club football and. Look, I've done it before, years and years and years ago on a forum. I've done it before where I dug up 8 games of football, representative football based around State of Origin, where from all of the teams in the comp, I created 8 games with 8 teams, 16 teams, represented, which were things like North Queensland versus South Queensland, City Country for all the players that missed out on the State of Origin teams. I think it was North Island versus South Island, New Zealand. There was PNG versus Fiji. There are 8 teams if you have to have 8 games. But you don't have to have 8 games. You could have a game on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, end the week on Sunday with Origin. Go through again. You could make this Women's State of Origin the Saturday game. You can, there's so many things you could do. And it would be better.
And that's the thing. You're not even losing out in terms of the NRL season, because when we're not shortening the NRL season, we're just saying it should be stopped halfway through and then resume after that.
Exactly.
So we're not being robbed of any football here. If anything, it'll just extend the season a little bit into October. I don't think anyone's
got. I think they should have started earlier.
Or either one.
Just because I want the public holiday.
Well, either way, you're ending up getting more weeks of football.
Yeah, it's a stupid thing. This whole thing where players are out for 9 days and miss games, and the games are full of missing players, and you have things like bloody James Tedesco being pulled out a few hours before the Roosters are meant to go up against the Cowboys, losing by 2. And James could, and especially in that last minute play, if you've watched that, the Roosters' last 1 minute play, it goes for 1 minute. It's just crazy. James Tedesco could have been the difference in that. It's the current system kind of ruins club football. So anyone who is against it is kind of against making club football what it should be.
And that's the thing. Say what's the date today? The 6th of June. Mm-hmm. So let's say hypothetically, right? Sunday's the 9th of June, right? You go 9th, 16th, 23rd, the 3 games, done. In 2 weeks, it's done. The first game's on the 9th, the third game's on the 23rd. Done and dusted. No impact on the club season. Over in 2 weeks. And then you resume the club season.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a lot better than having this 10-week circus where the NRL just goes on the back burner until the State of Origin series finishes.
Yeah, it's bodge. Anyway, it's never going to happen. NRL doesn't do anything.
No, they won't do anything. It'll just continue on.
Yeah. Well, they will do something weird. Maybe they'll make it once every 4 weeks, and every player should go into camp for 3 weeks, and we can give everyone 4 buys a year, and that's the kind of weirdness they do. But that's like, I just touched on it, like the Origin build-up lacked the historic hatred. There was no build-up. It was 2 weeks, but there was no build-up. Nothing happened. The biggest news out of all of it was Dylan Edwards was injured. And, okay, there's your news. Edwards out. Tedesco in. Apparently, Daly Cherry Evans, like the Queenslanders had to sign off on allowing Tedesco to come in.
And that's the other problem is that once State of Origin is on, the media just completely forget about the NRL competition because that becomes second rate for 10 weeks. Yeah. But there's not much, as you said, there's not much actual Origin news. So it sort of leaves a hole in the news cycle for 10 weeks.
Yeah, they should have. If I was, Queensland should have rejected the request for Tedesco to be brought in. Then we would have had something new.
Yeah, we would have made it more interesting.
But instead, it was just Edwards is out, Tedesco's in, Queensland okayed it. All right, on to there's no other news.
And I mean, the build-up lacked that historic hatred, and whether people like it or not, and I know it's not a politically correct thing to say, but since the punch has been banned, it's taken the unpredictability out of the ticket price for the fans. You went to the game last night. You went there knowing that there was going to be no fight. If you had gone to the game 20 or 30 years ago, well, different story. You would have known, well, pretty much guaranteed there is going to be a fight. Yeah. And I know it sounds politically incorrect, but a lot of people, the vast majority of fans, would love seeing that. I remember you get home from school and you go, I can't wait to watch the Origin game. There's going to be a fight tonight. And it added something. It added an unpredictability to the ticket price that's no longer there. If Queensland win this series, it'll be 15 series wins for them in the last 19 series. So is State of Origin what it used to be in the 80s or 90s? It's not. It's not. And I'm not saying they should get rid of it. That would be mad. I'm saying that it's not worth ruining 10 weeks of the NRL season for anymore. We need to change the system. It needs to go to 3 straight Sunday nights. Yeah. For it not to have this impact that it has on the quality of the NRL season. I also don't
like the fact that it's Wednesday. It's kind of annoying. Like, I had to go on Wednesday. Got to come to work the next day. Like, Sunday is okay because it's like the end of the weekend and everything, but the Wednesday is like quite frustrating to me. I've always hated the Wednesday. And then I know they did one on Sunday. I think it was during COVID or last year. I can't remember. There was one on Sunday. But that was bodged because the others were on Wednesday.
Yeah. Even during COVID, what they had to do was, because the competition was suspended, they had to play it at the end of the season. Origin Origin was played at the end of the season in 2020. Yeah. So, put it this way, I'd rather it be played at the end of the season than what they got now.
That was always Andrew Voss's thing, just played at the end of the season. But then they had the thing where it's like, you have a bunch of teams that are off for 4 weeks and a bunch of teams that are off for 3, then 2, then 1.
As teams get knocked out, you just do what you do with kangaroo squads and just put players into a train-on squad. But anyway, look, that aside, I'd be okay with, do it for 3 weeks in June and then resume the NRL season.
Yeah, it would be better. Yes. Yeah, and then there was a national anthem last night. I didn't know it was divided fans. It was like a country and western version.
Yeah, it was described online as an Ed Sheeran remix of the national anthem. So
who was the guy? I'm not cool, so I don't know. Like, I'm old. I know he was someone famous.
I know his last name is Wright. I've got it in my notes here. I'm just wondering what the first name is.
Dylan Wright.
Dylan Wright, yes.
He won Australian Idol. Yeah, I'm not cool, so I don't know these things.
I didn't know that either.
I don't know who he is, or nor did I care. And what, people didn't like it?
Yeah, it was just an acoustic version of the national anthem, so it just copped, as you can imagine, that sort of thing cops it on social media.
That, like, the singers do that stuff and they get... Nobody ever likes it, you know, when they do the funny ones. So, yeah, just stick to the thing. Play that annoying pre-recorded symphony.
Yeah. Just straight down the line.
Yeah.
So Julie Anthony used to sing it. She used to sing it really well. She just sung it as it should be sung.
But yeah, it was. I was there. It's like you stand up, you sing, and it was.
Because it was weird. He started the song, and you thought you didn't think it was going to be the national anthem. The way he started, and then you go, "Oh wait, this is the anthem."
But yeah, again, they told us all to stand for the national anthem, and then he started playing his guitar, twanging along, and everyone was like, "Wait, what? Oh, the lyrics have started. Crap." Yeah, so State of Origin. As I said, Gowie will be in next week to go over State of Origin, what's next, what they should do. So I'll be keen to get his thoughts. Next team names are in 2 weeks, and then the next game is 20.
It'll be 3 weeks from yesterday, so it'll be the 26th.
26th of June. Yeah, 26th of June. It is in Melbourne at the MCG. Maybe I'm going to that, but I don't know.
Yeah, nice. That'll be alright, wouldn't it?
In other news, the French Open is currently on. Alex de Minaur got through to the quarterfinal.
Yes.
Beating... Who did he beat? Medvedev.
Yes.
That was really good. I watched some highlights, but unfortunately he went down in a straight sets loss. The great Australian hope.
Yeah, unfortunately went down to Alexander Zverev in the quarterfinals this morning, not that long before our podcast recording this morning. So disappointing. He led 4-love in the tiebreaker, in that second set tiebreaker, and let that slip. And I think once he'd let that slip away, well, he was never coming back from 2-love down, and unfortunately Zverev got the job done in straight sets there.
So that's Zverev's through to the semis?
Yeah, so Zverev will play against Casper Ruud in the semis. Casper Ruud, of course, going through with a free pass with Novak Djokovic withdrawing, which we'll get to in a sec. Carlos Alcaraz will play Yannick Sinner in the other men's semi-final. Yep, that's a heavyweight clash if ever you've seen one. And in the women's semis, Iga Swiatek will play against Coco Gauff. And Paolini will play against Andreeva in the other women's semi.
When does it finish?
It'll be Sunday night. It'll be the men's final. Our time will be late Sunday night.
What time is it, actually? It's in the middle of the night, yeah.
Yeah, it'll be 11 p.m. I mean, at least you'll have Monday off with the public holiday.
Yeah, that's
so
right.
you might be able to watch some of it.
Yeah, it's a mission for me to start what could possibly be a 4.5-hour tennis match.
Yeah.
At 11
It might be
PM.
just to watch the first set and go to bed, maybe, for most people.
But when Alex de Minaur did get through to the quarterfinal, it was the Tennis Channel did a graphic that said the first Australian to reach a quarterfinal at the French Open
since Leighton Hewitt in 2004, in 20 years.
But Ash Barty did that, right? You got to be clear about the men and women, all tennis, all broadcast. Okay, guys, you got to be clear.
Yeah, I mean, Renee Stubbs, actually, the former Australian women's player, she actually got herself in a bit of hot water. She called out the Tennis Channel on that and mentioned how Sam Stosur had done well at the French Open. I think she made the final a couple of times, Sam Stosur. But Renee Stubbs actually completely overlooked Ash Barty's win in 2019. And then she copped it. People were saying, well, if you're going to correct them, well, you got to get it right yourself. Yes. And that's fair enough as well.
Yeah, it's true.
But look, what I would say to that is, look, I know, of course, we don't want to forget about Ash Barty winning the French Open in 2019, but the men's singles competition, I know they didn't specify that it was the men's, but the men's singles is a different competition to the women's singles. We know that when they're talking about Alex de Minaur, they're talking about the men's singles, right? if they were talking about a female player, well, then of course you'd be talking about Ash Barty. Ash Barty would be coming up in every conversation about how she won it in 2019.
Don't need to say men when we're talking about men.
The men's singles is a different competition to the women's singles. I don't know why people are getting so pedantic. Every time someone talks about Leighton Hewitt, they have to say, oh no, you're forgetting about Ash Barty. Leighton Hewitt was the last Australian male to win a Grand Slam singles title. So if you're talking about male players like Alex de Minaur or Nick Kyrgios, who's lost interest in it but did well up until a couple of years ago, well then you're going to be going back to Leighton Hewitt because you're talking about male players.
Yeah, so he's the last... Leighton Hewitt was the last Australian to reach an ATP quarterfinal, as opposed to what's the women's one?
WTA.
Yeah, like it is. It's so dumb, man. We don't need to worry about stuff like that. What we should be worrying about is Novak Djokovic and the end of his career.
Yeah, well, he has not won a tournament. Hasn't reached the final of any tour event this year, Novak Djokovic. And he did. I know he won 3 majors last year, but now he's 37 years old. He's got this knee injury. You are starting to now wonder. Look, if he doesn't win Wimbledon, you are starting to now wonder. Well, could this be the end? And look, I think Rafael Nadal was pushing him along for a long time. But once Nadal retired, and look, Nadal, his career, unfortunately, his career's on life support now.
Yeah,
we have to say
he
that.
has to retire.
Nadal's not going to win another major, right? So, look, as soon as Nadal officially retires, there's part of you that sort of thinks, well, Djokovic is going to go too because, well, his work is done. He's got the record. He's won more majors. Djokovic has won 24 majors. Nadal's won 22. Nadal's not going to win another one, let alone another 2. Djokovic doesn't have to worry about his record anymore. It's in safekeeping. So you are starting to think that this big 3 era is finally, with these 2 legends of the sport into their late 30s now, that era is coming to a close now.
I think like Nadal will finish up, should really finish up after losing in the first round.
He shouldn't have even played that match.
So he'll finish up, and then probably Djokovic will potter around for the next couple of years, like Nadal and Federer before him did, and like not win anything and possibly win another one, like Nadal managed to do. I think Federer managed to do one as well in the twilight of his career.
Well, win majors. Yeah. I think the 2018 Australian Open was Federer's last major win. And then he got good results until I think he made the semis at the Australian Open in 2020. But that's when once the pandemic hit and they suspended the tour, well, that's when a player of Federer at that time was in his very late 30s, I think. And so the pandemic really ended Federer's career. It was a long suspension of the tour, and by the time he got back at his age, it was just far too late for him to go back to that great.
Nadal's followed that same kind of thing. When was the last time he won? He won
2022 French Open was his last major.
So I know it's only like not that long ago, but he potter around for another year or two and then retire. Novak Djokovic is going to end up. They all end up the same way in tennis, man. Like they win a major, they're champions, and they potter around for a few years, not winning anything, and then have to go dude, it's time for me to go.
I don't like it. There's too many players who go on too long. Stan Wawrinka's another one. Andy Murray's another one. These players just going on too long. And they're still going, these players.
They're going to end up like Bernard Tomic playing in the minors and screaming at his girlfriend.
I wouldn't put them in Bernard Tomic's category, but... Yeah, I mean, Djokovic was quoted as saying, look, after all these years and everything that I've achieved, it's not easy to get up every day with the same clarity and desire to do certain things for the millionth time. So there's a bit of an indication there that I've got this suspicion that once Nadal retires, he might just go too because his work is done. Yeah,
I'm sure Nadal, speaking about Nadal, he went out, well, it was in straight sets, right?
Yeah, to Zverev,
in the first round. That put his record at the French Open to like 116 and 4.
Yeah, it's 112 and 4.
So he
had 3 losses before that.
And you don't want it to grow anymore, so that's it.
Yeah, it's just... Be done. I mean, I know, obviously, he's won the title 14 times. I'm not going to say that, his legacy's been trashed or anything. That'd be an overreaction, but I just thought it would have been nice to keep that intact, Like we knew Zverev was going to win that match.
Yeah.
Nadal was just seriously underdone. I would have loved to have seen him leave it at the 3 losses, but he couldn't help himself. He went out and played and lost. But anyway, look, if it is his last time at the French Open, a great career, 14 titles. And I just thought, the fact that Djokovic, Iga Swiatek, Carlos Alcaraz, they were all in the stands watching the match. You very rarely see other players watching their rival, at the stadium watching their rivals while they're still all playing. That's such a rare occurrence, cheering him on, and it just shows the esteem that Nadal's held in, I think.
Yeah, I think but it is time for him to finish, let's face it.
Yeah, well, he's just turned 38. He'll turn 39 during the French Open next year. Surely he's not going to go on for another French Open. The Olympics are being played on the Roland Garros courts because they're in Paris, of course. So that's what Nadal's holding out for here. I think he's going to play at the Olympics in July. And then I think most likely he'll call it a day.
It is July, yeah. We were having that conversation yesterday. Finishing up with tennis. I haven't watched any of it because it's
well, it's hard to watch the way Channel 9 cover it.
But it's in the middle of the night, and like I said, I'm not staying up to watch 5 hours of tennis. I can't stay up past 9 o'clock,
but,
man.
I mean, you talk about the time slot. I mean, one of Djokovic's matches that went really late into the night in Paris, that was actually at a watchable time in Australia because it went to the early hours of the morning there. There's an 8-hour time difference, so it was actually at a watchable time. I don't think it finished until about 3 a.m., the Djokovic match. So it finished at 11 a.m. here, so it was at a watchable time. But they weren't showing it on their Gem channel. I mean, what else are they showing on Gem at that time? What? The Shawshank Redemption or something?
Shawshank Redemption.
I mean, seriously? And it's not just their lack of showing matches. Their commentary is terrible. Todd Woodbridge just puts you to sleep. He should just go back and host that game show. Tipping Point. That's what it's called. Yeah. Like, if Channel 9 won't do it properly, well, why don't they give the rights to some... That's what annoys me. Don't buy the rights and then not do it justice. If you're going to buy the rights, do it properly. Otherwise, let someone else buy it, like Fox.
Yeah, they fork out heaps of money, but you don't want it on Fox because then people can't watch it. Tennis is a free-to-air game.
Okay, but you'd at least...
It's got to be like 7 or... But they're going to hire the same people anyway. Well, not Todd Woodbridge because he's stuck with Tipping Point.
You'd at least hope that when Djokovic, who was the world number 1, he won't be when the new rankings come out, but at that time he's the world number 1. Well, he still is technically. If he's playing a match at 11 o'clock in the morning, I want to be able to watch it on Gem instead of the Shawshank Redemption. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Just a disclaimer.
No, look, I don't want this to be a bashing on the Shawshank Redemption.
Shawshank Redemption may not have been on, but that's the movie they show.
I know it's a great movie, but you can watch that movie at any time and not when the world number 1 tennis player is playing.
It may not have even been on, but that's just the indicator.
Yeah.
Like, it seems to be on every single time there's a sporting event on. Like, it is... I said I haven't watched any of it because of the timing. But I'm going to try and watch some of the final, but it's going to be hard. That's it for French Open. Finishes up this week, and then the Olympics are the next major tennis event. I'm pumped for the Olympics this year. I don't know why.
It's coming up. Late July.
I can't wait for the breakdancing, to be honest. I really want to watch the breakdancing.
Late July, it'll be here before we know it.
But there's also the T20 World Cup that nobody cares about because it's on Amazon Prime or something like that. Unwatchable because it's on a...
Yeah, you think Fox, with a dedicated cricket channel, would show it, or one of the free-to-air networks. Amazon Prime it's on, so, if you don't have Amazon Prime, you're not going to see it.
Yeah, well, currently, during the filming of this podcast, Papua New Guinea are playing Uganda and Australia are playing Oman.
Yeah, so... We will point that out. The match started at 10:30, Australia and Oman at Bridgetown. It's 10 past 11 in the morning, so we can't talk a whole lot about that.
1 for 37 right now.
Yeah, we can't talk a whole lot about that because...
It's actually a terrible event as well, man. Like, there's 20 teams in it. Most of the teams are so... Like, cricket is like one of those sports where it's like, the top 5 are really, really, really good. Then there's daylight, and then there's the next 5. Then there's daylight, then there's the rest of the world. Papua New Guinea's right now, like, as I'm not bagging Papua New Guinea, but this is the way it is. They have 0 outs right now. Okay, they've scored 77, so they're 0 for 77. It's the 19th over in their 20 over match. They scored 77.
I mean, you'd hope.
You think like someone's going to smash him, but Uganda is about to going to bat. So
I mean, you'd hope Australia's not going to have any trouble with Oman. I mean, if we have trouble beating Oman,
they were all out for 70. They were all out for 77. Sorry,
right.
But 19.1 overs. Right. So still only scored 77 in their 19 overs. There was a match the other day. I think it was America versus Canada. In the first 10 overs, America had scored 96. One of the players hit 10 sixes. Some of the fields are so small because they're baseball fields. It's just not a good tournament.
I mean, India beat Ireland by 8 wickets, as you'd expect, with 46 balls to spare.
46.
Skipper Rohit Sharma made 52, retired hurt. Virat Kohli got out for 1, if you can believe that, against Ireland. So that's...
Well, I watched the other, speaking of Ireland, actually, that reminds me, the Scotland versus England one was ridiculous. Just to rub more into the... So it was rained out. And so they each get a point. But in the 10th, it was rained out after 10 overs. Scotland was 0 for 90. So the England bowling attack is like woeful. They couldn't even get anyone out of Scotland. So England were lucky to get away with that 1 point on their
England don't seem to have a great record against these minnow nations in these sorts of events. They find themselves either struggling to beat or get beaten by teams they should be beating very easily, these minnow nations.
Yeah, well, their adjusted target was 109. But
I'm quite in favour of England being beaten.
Yeah, it's so funny. Scotland was like favourites to win the match, after their initial opening. The adjusted target for England was 109, but unfortunately they didn't actually end up getting to bat. And 109 in 10 overs. So yeah, it's the competition is hard to watch. It's kind of been, from what I understand from the people who are watching it, it's like really bad games, and it's not an entertaining thing. And so I can understand that maybe free to air didn't actually want it, and why Amazon Prime Video ended up with it. But who wants to get Amazon Prime to do sport, man? We've already got KO or Foxtel, and then there's like Paramount Plus that has rugby union for all 7 of the rugby union fans in Australia. On rugby union, Melbourne Rebels is closing down, by the way. First time in their 14-year history they've made the finals, and they're closing down. They won't be renewed next year. It's bad enough that we have to have Disney, Netflix. Netflix is doing sports now as well. It's bad enough that for entertainment everyone has to have Disney Plus, Netflix, Amazon Prime, Paramount Plus, whatever else is HBO, I don't know what else, Foxtel for Game of Thrones, just to watch one game, one TV show that you want to watch, you've got to fork out another $20 a month. Now sport as well. If I really wanted to watch the T20 cricket, I would not have bought Amazon Prime for it. I would just be using something like, I won't say the names, but there are plenty of pirate sites on the internet where I can watch streams.
But that's the thing, like, in all honesty, you're just not going to get Amazon Prime just for the sake of watching this tournament. You're just not going to do that. I'm just being honest about that.
Yeah, I'm not going to pay $20 a month. I mean, you also get quick delivery on your Amazon products, but don't care. So yeah, and then Pat Cummins signed with the San Francisco Unicorns. Unicorns, but that means he's not available for the BBL.
Well, he hasn't played much.
I know, he's been an ambassador for some team.
Hasn't played. I think it's since 2018 he hasn't played in the BBL due to international commitments. So, yeah, there you go.
Now he can't play at all.
4-year contract with the San Francisco Unicorns.
So this is a guy that hasn't played in the BBL since 2018 due to international commitments. It's now been able to sign with a franchise that plays at the same time as BBL and be available for them. It's all about the patriotism. Is it all about patriotism or is it all about money?
Yeah, well, I think this one. So this one starts. The season starts on July 7th, so I don't think it's at a different time of the year to the BBL.
But there's internationals on at that time, right?
July 7th.
Well, there's internationals on all the time.
Yeah, there's internationals on all the time. So that's the thing. It's a 4-year deal. At some point in that 4 years, he's going to be he's going to have international cricket clashing with it.
So why couldn't he play in the BBL for the past 6 years?
There's obviously not as much money in it. But yeah, you talk about the money. So the Unicorns are co-owned by Silicon Valley entrepreneurs Anand Rajamaran and Venki Harinarayan. I hope I got that right. So the chance to help promote cricket in the US combined with business opportunities at the Unicorns helped convince Cummins to sign that 4-year deal.
The chance to promote cricket in the US when he has also for the past 6 years had the chance to promote cricket in his home country of Australia. And he hasn't taken it. So, bull crap. It's all about money. It's good if America wants to get into the cricket and run World Cups and stuff like that. But the BBL used to be really awesome and is now terrible and unwatchable because no one wants to play for it. Maybe Dave Warner will be back next year.
Yeah, it just lacks the star power,
you know. That's it for the T20 Boring Cup. In other news, Conor McGregor is meant to be returning on the 30th of June. But the rumour is he's not actually returning. They cancelled the press conference. Conor McGregor released this really vague statement. In consultation with the UFC, today's press conference was cancelled due to a series of obstacles outside of our control. Apologise to my Irish fans and fans around the world for the inconvenience and appreciate all your passion and support. Can't wait to put on the greatest all-time show in the Octagon. Now, there's a few different things that go along with this as well. You can no longer pre-buy the pay-per-view, which you were able to up until this press conference was cancelled. So you're not allowed to. You can't buy it on Main Event, on UFC Fight Pass in other countries, anything like that. All of a sudden, many people had already pre-bought it. Now you can't. Dana White has released no statement. Normally, when the news says something and Dana White wants to say it's bullcrap, he'll go on some press conference and like swear and be like, "That's bullshit. I don't know where you fucking guys come up with this." Has said nothing. And Michael Chandler has ended his camp and returned home. Who was his opponent?
So it's not happening.
Yeah, they reckon it's really, really not happening. Conor McGregor's been out partying for the past.
So where does that leave McGregor then? Is he?
He's done. No one will accept it anymore. He's for the past few years, every year he's been saying I'm going to do 3-4 fights this year. I'm going to be super active, and then he hasn't fought in 2 years.
So is he? Would you almost call him the Nick Kyrgios of the UFC?
100%. Yeah, like he's just
says he's going to play. Yeah. In Kyrgios's case, in McGregor's case, says he's going to fight and just can't be bothered.
Yeah, just because in reality, like, why would he? It's not for money. Khabib Nurmagomedov tried to use that line on him, like, "Oh, you only fight for money, I fight for legacy," and like. Guy, he's a billionaire.
But don't in the case of Kyrgios and McGregor, don't con your fans. If you're done, you're done. Just be honest about it.
Yeah, they should never.
Don't string people along. If you're done, just say so.
And, like, they did a whole the Ultimate Fighter season, McGregor versus Chandler, and the way that works is the two coaches take teams, and then they have a card. Like, the teams fight each other, and they have a card where the champions, tough championship, the last fight for there is on the card, and then the two coaches will fight. This season is Shevchenko versus Grasso. They're going to fight, I think, 4 days before Mexican Independence Day in the Sphere in Las Vegas, right? And so that tough season happened last year, and everyone's been waiting. Michael Chandler's also been out since then. And now it's just like this thing where, like, I think the most telling... Conor McGregor's never cancelled a press conference, and he's never pulled out of a fight before. One of his fights was cancelled when he didn't arrive to a press conference. Oh, wow. So I think it was the second Nate Diaz fight. So the UFC cancelled his fight as punishment. But he's pre-cancelled a press conference. As I said, I think the most telling thing is the fact that they've stopped selling the pay-per-view. Okay. Like, you can't buy it now, and they won't cancel it. They'll find someone to replace it, but that's what's probably happening. Like, who can replace it?
So you think there's a good chance McGregor doesn't fight again?
I think he won't ever fight again. He may do some, like, billion-dollar fights now. That's the thing. Like, could fight Floyd Mayweather or Jake Paul or Logan Paul or something, but he won't.
You talk about Jake Paul.
Mike Tyson Jake Paul fight is suspended.
Yes, I was going to ask you about that. So that's not happening now?
They haven't given a new date because of health issues with Mike Tyson. Of course, he's like an almost 60-year-old guy. because of health issues with him. They've had to postpone it, and they haven't given a new date. So that was always nonsense as well.
Yeah, so that may not be going ahead. It's a pity. I wasn't going to be able to help myself. I was going to tune in. I was going to go and watch that
Netflix party, man. I was willing. See, that's one that I was willing to sign up for Netflix for a month because it's on Netflix.
Yeah. I would have watched that one.
So Conor McGregor's probably out. I don't know what's going to happen on 30th of June. I had it all booked in my bloody diary. They're going to have someone, but the rest of the card, because it's a Conor McGregor card, the rest of the card is always lackluster as well because he wants all the money and all the show and all the highlights and all the eyes on him. He doesn't want to have any other cool fights or big names on the card. So the rest of the card that's already been booked is pretty bodge. But it doesn't matter because everyone's going to watch it for Conor McGregor. But now if Conor McGregor's not on it, you've just got basically the worst card in the history of the UFC. It
becomes like any other fight card.
Yeah, a numbered card is meant to have championship matches or Conor McGregor. There's no championship matches on it because Conor McGregor was on it. Now there's no one available to do championship matches because they've either just fought or they're already booked. So this card is ruined fully. And
as a non-fight enthusiast, McGregor is someone who gets me interested, and if he's not on the card, then I've lost interest.
It's bodge. That's whole 30th of June is ruined. On to social media blower-uppers. GT Britcher on the Craig Gower episode regarding Cooper Cronk's comments about Luai. If you remember, Cooper Cronk said they wouldn't have won if Luai stayed on the field. GT Britcher said he was obviously injured, so he couldn't do what he normally does, LOL. Hence the reason Cogger came on. Cleary coach being respectful. Let him start. Simple. And yes, Cogger did better due to injury. It's simple. So I think what GT Britcher is saying is he agrees they wouldn't have won because Luai was injured anyway. And so Ivan Cleary let Luai start and gave him every chance. But unfortunately, it didn't pan out and they had to bring Cogger on to finish it.
Yeah, Jerome Luai is the 3 straight premiership winning 5'8" who seems to just cop it from everybody and gets no credit for anything.
It's overrated.
Yeah.
I'm sure if they still had that rugby league week most overrated player, it'd be him. But he'd be in good company. I think Jonathan Thurston won it. Brad Fittler.
Braithen Astor
many times. Freedom of Choice Lover 3734 regarding Nathan Cleary being in Origin. As a Queenslander, I'd love to have Cleary playing Origin. He has won us a few series lately and he's predictable and goes missing most of the game unless his forwards put him in front on the scoreboard. Then he's the best player in the world.
No, I'm not going along with that. I'm not copying that. That's Nathan Cleary's won 3 straight premierships at halfback. The guy can play. The guy's a superstar, and New South Wales were far worse off without him
100%.
last night. So I think that's a load of rubbish. Nathan Cleary's a superstar, and New South Wales were crying out for him last night, and they could well have done with him in the team.
That thing with until his forwards put him in front on the scoreboard, that's the same with every half. Doesn't matter how good of a halfback you are, unless you're Andrew Johns. If your forwards aren't going forward, you don't have time. Yeah. They're not getting quick play the balls. You don't have time. You can't do anything. No. So Nathan Cleary having that issue is no different. Yes, he's been surrounded by 3-time premiership winning forwards. But at Origin, they need the forwards to get on top.
Nathan Cleary is clearly the New South Wales' best halfback. He's the first player picked for New South Wales if he's fit.
Yeah, he's penned in.
So to suggest that New South Wales are better off without him, which I think this commenter has, is a load of rubbish, and I don't agree with it at all.
He's penned in permanent marker, And Vic Sophius, one of our biggest fans, on the Raiders signing Ricky Stewart for another 5 years. It seems to me that the Raiders want another 5 years of disappointment. I notice. We have Piercy on here and we have Craig Gower, and they both speak very highly of Ricky Stewart. I'm gonna ask Craig Gower next week, why do people think Ricky Stewart is a good coach in the league and the media and so on? I'm actually gonna ask him because, to be honest, Vic, your sentiment is echoed throughout the realms of fandom. Ricky Stewart hasn't won a premiership in 22 years.
Yeah, 2002.
22 years. He's got I think it's a 52% win rate. He's done nothing with the Raiders except take him to a grand final and he's been there for like 10 years. Before that, Parramatta, 2 wooden spoons.
And it's a double. People say about Brad Arthur, he's been at Parramatta for 10 years without a premiership, so we'll sack him. Well, it's the same for Ricky at Canberra.
Exactly.
It's the exact same scenario. In fact, Brad Arthur made a grand final a lot more recently. Only 2 years ago, Ricky Stewart made the grand final 5 years ago. And I talked about those journalists, they just make excuses for Ricky that they don't make for other coaches. They say things like, it's hard to recruit players down in Canberra. Well, sorry, I don't remember those excuses being made for previous coaches of the Raiders.
No.
He gets a free pass from his posse of journalists. And, they just overlook all of these things that we talk about over and over again with Ricky Stewart. I think he's only, in 10 seasons... 10 completed seasons, he's made the finals 5 times, but only 3 of them he's really contended. He bombed out twice in the finals. No premiership, 10 years. Most coaches are out the door in that scenario, seriously.
Exactly. So, I'm going to ask.
And James Hooper, comparing him to Craig Bellamy and Wayne Bennett, who've won a lot more premierships than him. Wayne Bennett with 7, Bellamy with 3/5. Seriously. It just comes up. And he gets re-signed until 2029.
Yeah, I'm going to ask Craig Gale why people think he's why everybody in the... I know Mitchell Pearce talks very highly of him because he's had history with him and never got coached by him, I think he said. No, he was recruited to the Roosters by Ricky Stewart and Ricky Stewart got sacked. I think that's what he said when he was on the podcast. But yeah, it just seems like players and... media believe Ricky Stewart is an amazing coach, but everyone in the fandom kind of tends to agree that he's the most overrated coach. I'm going to ask Craig Gower next week when he's in. Housekeeping for the week. Don't forget to sign up to SmartB. We've just launched the Smart Odds Comparison, which has a subscription fee of $25 per month. It allows you to, if you're into horse racing, really get deep into the odds and market rates and market percentages and all this stuff that I don't understand, including the totes and all this kind of stuff. But yeah, if you're into horse racing, get into that. I'm sure they'll be talking about it more on the SmartB Racing Update with Bryce and Lewis, which you can listen to each Friday. Follow at SmartB app on all socials. And a competition is about to launch in which... I can't remember the exact details of it, but it's coming out next week, in which we'll be giving away 2 tickets to any regular season game for any sport in Australia to one lucky winner each week. So it doesn't matter what you like, you get 2 tickets to. You get to tell us, subject to availability. T's and C's apply. It'll be announced on social, so that's why you should follow at SmartB app on social media. Cool, and that's it for the week, and we'll work out next week's schedule later.
Thanks, Sean.
Bye, producer no one.